Hello, boys and girls, salutations, and welcome to part one of chapter 19 for Charlotte's Web. You will need the following materials, so pause the video if you need to, a pen or pencil, Charlotte's Web packet, and of course your Charlotte's Web book. Welcome back, boys and girls. Let's take a look at chapter 19 questions. And I just want to show you my chapter 18 coloring. So I did color my humble page. There it is. Humble written in the web. And for chapter 19, let's look at those questions. What is the greatest work that Charlotte has ever made? Number 2, how many eggs were inside? We'll have to keep reading to see what that's all about. Write the number word and not the number, so the number word. Write words to describe the egg sac. So Charlotte's egg sac. Words to describe it. We're going to see it in the chapter. And then finally, it says, number 4, Charlotte was languishing. What does this word mean? And actually, it's one of the words that we're going to look at for our brand new vocabulary, and maybe we can actually circle which one is the right word right now. So let's take a look at the back of our packet, which just shows the life cycle of a spider. And I didn't want to, it's nothing that you need to do. You could color it if you wanted to, that's fine with me, but it just shows the life cycle of the spider here, and we can read that at the very end of our chapter. So let's take a look at the new vocabulary words. So the first one, actually I'm going to keep my packet here because the first one is actually languishing. And we're going to find out what that word means in just a moment. When you are languishing, you are weakening. So which one do you think is the right definition for languishing here? Is it eating more, slowing down, moving faster, getting excited? I would say slowing down too, right? So I'm going to circle B. Our next new word that we're going to see, carousing. Carousing. And when you are carousing, you're going out on the town. I mean, you're just kind of going around and just cruising all around town. That is what carousing means. Kind of going out and about. Pep. It's an interesting word, right? Short word pep. And pep just means energy. So some of you have a lot of pep in the morning, and by the end of the day, we don't have a lot of pep, right? I know I'm that way. Here is something that I sometimes do. Gorge. Gorge, and to gorge means to overeat. Sometimes when I go to like hometown buffet or something, man, sometimes I just gorge on that ice cream. I do like the salad, so sometimes I tend to gorge on the salad as well. And on the soup. That stuff is so good. Okay, so now that we looked at some of the new vocabulary words, I'm going to set my packet off to the side, and I'm going to take a look at some of the words to know when we read chapter 19. And one of them they'll talk about again is that morning dew. And I thought, gosh, I need to show a picture of this. So morning dew is kind of like that water that we see early in the morning, like when you walk to school and you notice there's water on the grass and no one turned on a sprinkler, right? So here's a little bit of like a morning dew on the web and on the grass. That is dew. That's moisture that was collected from the night because it was so cold. And then once the chill of the night started to warm up because it's turning into daytime, the water from the air turns into these droplets right here. And the droplets just sort of land anywhere. Then they'll talk about something called a blue tag or a blue ribbon. And you might have seen that before, right? Usually a blue ribbon usually means first place, right? So there's some blue ribbons here. They'll also talk about a handkerchief. And a handkerchief is kind of like a really old tissue, an old Kleenex, and they can be very fancy, like this one that has some really fancy kind of embroidery in it. Some can be pretty plain like this. And it was kept in the pockets of men and women to, wipe their face if they got a little hot, maybe blow their nose. And yes, they kept it like that. They would wash it and then reuse it again because back then there wasn't things like disposable tissues that you can just throw away, right? So those are handkerchiefs, and they still sell handkerchiefs to this day. They'll talk about something called a judge's booth. Now, a judge's booth, especially when you're at a fair, is basically like an area where the judges um, judge on something, right? They'll choose maybe like the best tasting pie or the best looking cow or the biggest looking pig. And they usually sit at a table like we have here and see how these women are writing down things. They're judging whatever it is that looks like they're eating some jam. And they're trying the jam and they're figuring out which jam tastes best and they're writing down their results uh, on their cards. And they usually sit at a table like this called the judge's booth. They'll also talk about in this chapter the grandstand, and some of you might have been to a grandstand before. It's basically like a large stadium, like the area that you sit in. So if you've gone to football games or any kind of game, a soccer game, basketball, oh, not basketball. Well, I guess a basketball game could be indoors, but grandstands are usually like this big outdoors stadium seating, that stadium that kind of leads from the bottom and up like that. So this is the grandstand, and it's a large area where something is being performed and many people can sit and watch. And then finally, they'll talk about confetti, one of my favorite things in the world. Confetti is just like little bits of paper that is usually thrown up into the air in order to celebrate something. And it comes in lots of different colors. So you'll see confetti that looks like this. And they're, again, used to celebrate stuff. So like maybe a birthday party, maybe a graduation, uh, something like that. That is confetti. All right, boys and girls. Thanks so much for joining me for part 1 of chapter 19. We're going to go on. So there goes Cupcake. We're going to move on to chapter 19 in part 2 of our video.